Hello, everyone. Welcome back to day one of Garuda Hacks. Thank you all for sticking around. I know it's been quite a few intermissions. I just want to remind everyone if you are already teaming up with other people and maybe already starting to think of ideas of what you're going to do for your project, please tag us and show us what you're doing on Instagram. Tag at Garuda Hacks, use the hashtag, and we want to repost you and we want to see your faces. So yeah, please connect and link up on social media. Other than that, we will now be starting our next session. Next up, we will be hearing from Kevin Chandra and Putri Karunia, co-founders of Cotter. Cotter is a Y Combinator W20 app that functions as a passwordless authentication service, allowing users to log in a website and app in less than 15 minutes. Cotter allows you to quickly enable sign-in with emails, phones, and with a prompt to users' devices for a fast and frictionless authentication experience. Today, Kevin is here to share with us about planning an MVP with Y Combinator and Alumni. And after Kevin's speech, Putri will teach us how to build a passwordless login page in under 10 minutes. So welcome, Kevin. Please take it away.
Cool. I hope you guys can hear this. I'm actively monitoring the chat, so let me know if you guys can't hear me. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So for today's session, I'm just gonna teach you all how to plan for an MVP from what we've learned from past experiences and from what we've learned from Y Combinator as well. And the next session will be led by my co-founder, Putri. She'll be teaching you guys how to make a login page in just under 15 minutes. So yeah, just a little bit about ourselves. My name is Kevin Chandra. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Cotter. And I'll also be joined by my CTO, Putri. She graduated from Berkeley, did CS. I graduated from USC, I did CS. Shortly after that, I worked at a YC company, and then we got accepted to YC end of last year. For Putri, after she graduated, she worked at Yelp, and then quickly quit Yelp and then worked with me on Cotter at YC. So yeah, that's just a little bit about us. Not really important, but yeah. So Cotter, we're in the business of eliminating passwords from the internet. We're the 9th Indonesian founded company to get admitted to YC, and we're currently based in San Francisco. And we're looking forward to building a remote team. So come talk to us if you're looking for an internship or simply just because you hate passwords as much as we do. We just launched 3 months ago, and we're currently processing about 1.5 million monthly authentication requests. We're used by over 1,000 developers worldwide. And yeah, I just graduated last year, not long ago. I was just like you guys, sitting in classes, skipping classes, watching lectures online, and joining hackathons. So me personally, I really love joining hackathons for 3 specific reasons. The first reason is that it gives me space from my school or my day job to work on a problem I've always wanted to, but never had the time. And then the second reason is because it has a time constraint, right? Which means that I can quickly test if my hack or my solution actually helps me or my target users solve a problem without the need of like making a pretty UI or a lot of different features, just a very simple hack. The third reason is because there's a lot of hackers around me. So there's a lot of people I could talk to about the problems that they're having, and I could quickly iterate because of the many people that's on the hackathon. And yeah, so for the first section, I'm going to teach you how to plan an MVP, what we've learned from our past experiences. So the plan, right? It's very simple. Just do 3 things. First, you go find the problem. 2, you launch quickly. And 3, you talk to your users and keep on iterating. So how do you find a problem? There are thousands or maybe tens of thousands of problems in the world that you can find. It's really not that hard. And especially when most of you come from a developing country like Indonesia or India, you don't need to look that hard. Just go outside, you'll see thousands of problems. There's no way that you can find one. And if you can't, don't try to create a problem. Just look it up. Talk to your friends, talk to yourself. Start from yourself. You're a hacker. You'll have like your annoying little workflows that you go through every day. You could create hacks and solutions for that. And that's actually a hackathon-worthy product. So finding the problem, right? Where can you begin? So you can begin by looking at yourself or at the people around you. After that, you can decide on what problem you want to work on and talk to the people who actually have those problems. Ask them, like, what have they tried so far to solve it? What are the hacks that they're trying to do? Then if you don't know where to start, again, come back. Start from yourself. Question yourself. What kind of problems do you have? So in particular, I'll give you 3 different problems that I have on a daily basis, and I'll show you the hacks and solutions that me and my friends have created to solve those problems. So the first problem, I think a lot of you have it as well, right? I really hate Google Chrome because it's a battery hog. I really want to save my laptop's battery, and I understand that opening too many tabs just drains my battery. So that's a problem. Very simple. Second problem that I have is that I really hate having to go back and forth on Google search link, right? I search for something, I open a new tab, I go back to that tab, open a new one, then I have tons of tabs. Hate it. Third problem, I can't track the documents that I send to people. That's what I do on a daily basis. I send documents to my team, to investors and whatnot. I really love to be able to track my documents or to authenticate users so that no random person would be able to open my document. So those are like 3 simple problems that we've worked on before. And you could find problems like that as well. So never start with an idea, right? If you start with an idea and not a problem, most of the time you'll end up questioning who the hell is going to use this product. And if you go to that flow, get out, pivot, start over, look for a problem and talk to them. Talk to people who have those kind of problems. Right, so what is an MVP? So an MVP is something that is ridiculously simple. This is usually the first thing that you can give to the very first set of users. Could be yourself, could be a group of people. It solves only one problem, nothing else. It usually could be done with a single page or a single feature, right? And then it delivers value directly to the users. You could clearly see if the users start using your product and it doesn't solve the problem. You'll know immediately. So in short, just try to build a website, an app, or whatever that just solves one problem, and it can very well be just one feature or just a one-page website or a one-page app. So coming back to the problems that I have personally faced, right? So I really, really hate Google Chrome because it's a battery hog, right? And we started with a problem of wanting to save your laptop's battery power by limiting Chrome. And then I started doing my research. So what causes Chrome to actually become a battery hog? What is my typical workflow? Do other people have to experience the same thing, right? And I figured out that opening way too many tabs causes Chrome to demand a lot of power from my computer. Good. So that's the research that I did. So there's a very simple solution, right? How do I save my computer's power? Very simple solution is just don't open too many tabs, right? If you don't want to think, you do that. And if you want to hack it out, you could create a Chrome plugin that detects, say, oh, your battery is like at 50%. All right, Kevin cannot open more than 3 Chrome tabs at once. Good. That's a very simple solution, right? And then if you're a bit smarter, you start to think more, you talk to people more, you'll start to understand that almost everyone has a lot of different tabs open on their Chrome, right? So, but all of those tabs that you're not looking at, they could actually be deactivated, right? So you don't really have to limit yourself by not opening too many tabs. You could still have all the tabs, and once you tap on that tab, it'll reload, right? By deactivating these tabs, it saves you a lot of battery. So in short, you could make a Chrome plugin that deactivates all the tabs that you're not currently looking at. So if you can see in my browser here, I show you there's a Chrome plugin that I use that suspends tabs if I'm not using it. So it's a quite simple hack. This is hackathon worthy. So the next problem, like a quick Google search. I really hate going back and forth And that's the problem. And I did my research that I open way too many tabs on a single Google search. And I get lost most of the time on a daily basis. Good. Now I start to ask if my friends are experiencing the same thing. And apparently they are. I did a very small hack, no coding needed. I just opened up 2 different Chrome browsers. I split up the screen by 1/3 and 2/3. So on the left side, I would have my Google search, the query, and all the results. Every time I want to open a tab from that result, I'll move it to the right side, the 2/3 of the screen. It made me much easier for me to look at all the results. And that's just like a very simple hack that I did. Right, so my friend actually built out at YC, he built out a very simple Electron app that loads 2 browsers at once. So I'm actually gonna show you live. Hold on, let me open up the app. Right, cool. So check this out, right? It's a very simple app that loads 2 browsers at once. On the left side, you can have the query and all the search results. And then on the right side, you could have the result. You could view the page, right? So take, for example, I want to search for Garuda Hacks, right? It loads on the left side, and then I could simply click D and F. F is for forward, D is for backwards. Look at how quick it is. It's a very simple hack that you guys can build as well. And again, it's hackathon worthy. So yeah, that's the second example. Hold on. Back. Cool. So for the third problem, right, I did mention that on a daily basis, I would want to be able to track the documents that I send and protect them from random people. So I did my research, right? So I asked myself, where do I usually send my documents, and where do people actually send their documents? Usually it's done over email by attaching it. And I asked myself again, what can I control? So can I control the document? Can I somehow track it? Should I put a password on it? But it really doesn't solve my problem. So I thought with my co-founders as well, like, what if we built a web page? Right? What if we built a web page and we can track it? I could set access control, build a login page for every single document. I could see who sees a particular slide at a given time. I could track everything. Oh, sounds great. So the solution that we made was something quite simple using our own SDK and APIs. We made a link generator for your documents, and then we protected that link with a simple login page. And we authenticated the users using a magic link. And the last feature that we did was that we integrated a time tracker for every single page, so we would know how much time a user spends on every single page. So I'm just going to show you quickly how it works. Hold on. So yeah, this is the app that we built. It's quite simple. You can upload a document. Once you do, you could create a link. So I made a link here for Garuda Hacks. It's a test. Here I could set the link as active. I could deactivate it. I could set expiry links to it. I could set the permission here. Anyone can open the link. Anyone can open the link, but only after verifying the email, so I would know who viewed it. Or I could limit the access just to a certain person. Like, take, for example, this document was just made for me, right? Go ahead and copy the link. Open incognito, paste that link. It says here, oh, Kevin has sent you a document. Verify your email to be able to access it. Verify my email. I should be opening up my email right now. And yeah, as you can see here, I received the magic link. Tap on that. Wait for it to load. I should be logged in right about now. So here, now I can view the document. Every time I tap next, there's a timer working on the back to track how much time I spent on each slide. So yeah, it's a quite simple hack, very simple to do. something that you could also consider when you're building your solution. Let me go back to my slide. Cool. So yeah, those are 3 of the examples and the hacks that we did, which are quite simple and didn't take a lot of time to do. So the second part of the plan, right? Launch quickly. You already have a problem. You did your research. You know what to do. So now good. How do I launch it quickly? So there are actually thousands of tools out there that you can hack together to build your solution. So go and find the easiest tool and never start from scratch, right? So most of the problems that you have and that you're trying to solve, it can actually be solved without the need of code, right? You should use code or technology as a tool, use it to scale, not for your MVP, right? At YC, we learned a very, very important saying by Paul Graham, who actually made Y Combinator. He said to us, start by doing things that don't scale. You can start by, making a spreadsheet. Even then, don't start from zero. Look for a template, right? You can start by using a website builder. And if you don't have payments integrated to your solution, then mail it. Mail the checks manually, right? Pay in cash. Do whatever is needed to solve the problem. So don't ever think that you need to build a very sexy solution using blockchain, AI, machine learning. Most of the problems that you face in this world, you don't need those kind of tech to solve it, right? And then second, you also need to define what is a launch to you. Most people would always have the dream and they would think of that grand moment when Steve Jobs comes up on stage and unveils the first iPhone or iPad. Ooh, it's so magical, right? Don't. A launch should be as simple as, oh, my product worked. It solved a problem. I'll start using it. Or you give to the person who has a problem to start using it. It's as simple as that. So build quickly, right? I'm just going to give you a very simple example. Let's put this into perspective. Imagine you're in the 1940s. Why? Because there were no TV remotes back then. Right? You and your family has a TV set. You found that it's really inconvenient to go back and forth from the end to the TV to just change the channel, change the volume, or turn it off. And then you start to imagine how to solve this problem that you're having, right? What would a normal person think, right? You wouldn't think of building a remote. Hell no. You would start looking at distance between your bed or your sofa to your TV. And you'll start thinking, how can I reach it without getting up, right? Then you look for things that are long enough to reach it. Then you figured out, oh, there's a broom near me. Let me try. Oh, one broom is not enough. Let me use 2 brooms, right? You tape it together. Then you start pressing the TV. Oh, that's convenient. That is exactly what an MVP is. Once you're at that stage, launch it, give it to your users, and ask them questions, right? And then this method has actually been followed by some of the greatest companies whose services you use today. If I ask you the question that who here remembers the first day that Instagram, Airbnb, or Uber launched? Probably no one. I'm going to show you what it looks like, what their MVP looked like in public, right? Take, for example, Instagram. This is what it looked like in 2010. It first launched after Kevin Systrom's bourbon pivot. All it did was 3 simple features. You could share pictures, you could put filters on your pictures, and you could socialize with your friends. Follow, like, and comment. That's it. There was no Instagram stories, no DMs, no location tagging, no explore feed. There's not a lot of features there. It's just very simple and clean. Take a look at the Airbnb example. This is the day they first launched. It's just a very simple page. It only did 3 things. As a host, you could list your property. As a user, you could search for listings in different cities. You could see there. There's no map view. Like, you take that for granted now, but then you could just input a city, that's it, right? And then you can book it. There's not even payments integrated with this. Like if you had used Airbnb the day it first launched, you have to pay in cash. So it's that simple. This is what Uber looked like the first time they launched, right? It's a simple website. It does 3 things: pick a spot, order a cab, pay in cash. That's it. There's no app, no notification, no driver tracking, no credit card payments, no food delivery, no driver ratings, nothing. So the point is to build a very simple MVP and give it to your users and iterate from that, all right? Coming back to my point where don't build from scratch. So these are some of the tools that I've used previously, right? You live in 2020, startups have done a lot for your generation. So whatever you think of trying to do, it most likely have been done in the same or a different way, right? So never ever start from scratch. Even the biggest companies use these tools. Look at existing tools and leverage them to build your MVP. So if you want to start with a spreadsheet, go ahead. Look for a template. Don't start from a blank spreadsheet. That's how Airbnb did in the first days of their operations, right? If you want to make a website without code, then use a website builder. Use WordPress, use Webflow, use Glide apps. It probably wouldn't take you more than an hour to make an app. And if you do want to code, use frameworks like Next.js or Gatsby. They pre-configure everything for you so you could get set up and running very quickly. And lastly, look for APIs and SDKs, right? There's a ton of them. Even the biggest companies use them. Like take, for example, if you guys have ever seen the chat in Gojek, Traveloka, or Reddit, it's actually powered by Zenbird. They didn't make it themselves. They're big companies, they still don't make it themselves. So don't try and make it yourself. And then if you want to send notification, use OneSignal, right? And then shameless plug, if you want to make a login page or an authentication flow, use us. So build quickly, launch quickly, get people to use it. So people usually get this feeling, right, of being ashamed if they launch something that doesn't look nice, looks like a shitty product. They think that what they've built needs more features, it needs to look better. It doesn't. You'll start to think like, I haven't done this, I haven't done that. Don't. All right, the full product is probably going to take you months and a whole team in years to complete. So the full product is usually something that's really cool in your head. Might not be cool to the users, right? They might not like it. It's just a concept that you should just keep in your head. Build an MVP, get it out, get feedback, right? If what you built solves a problem, just launch it. You should have an open mind when you build things, because the full thing that you have in your mind might not be the thing that the user wants. So moving on to talking to users. What do I mean by this? I mean by talking to them, asking them questions, seriously. The most common mistake is that after you build something, you would feel so proud, right? You fall in love with your MVP more than you actually should. And the problem with that is it leads you to wishful thinking. What I mean by this is when people don't use your product, you start to think, what else can this MVP be used for, right? Who else can use this product? You start to blame the problem or the people. Don't. If your MVP does not solve the problem, keep the problem, keep the user, fix your damn product. Coming back to my TV remote example, right? So this is the result of talking to users and iterating. In the beginning, the broom stitched together, it works. Cool, amazing. You launch it, you talk to your users, and then they told you that, over time it gets kind of heavy, it's not, durable. They ask you if, can you make it lighter? And then you start thinking, how? Don't ask them. That's your job as a developer, how? But they've given you a hint. Make it lighter. Then you start iterating, you start thinking, you found a way to make a remote with a cable instead, right? That works. Amazing. You're onto something. You launch it again. More people use it. Problems start to appear. Some users broke the cable, some tripped over it and gave you feedback again. Can you try to make it wireless? Then you iterate again and start to play around with lights and sensors. And apparently, as you develop the wireless TV remote, oh, it's so hard. It doesn't work. And nobody wants to use it. But you put too much effort in it and you fell in love with it again, right? You feel defensive and you start imagining weird things. What else can I use this for, right? You ask yourself, can I use this remote to drive a car? Can I use it to turn off light bulbs, right? Don't do that. Go back again to the initial problem. And you start iterating again and you think like, oh, it turns out that the problem was with the receiver, right? We tried infrared sensors, tried photocells, tried radio waves, and voila. Apparently after numerous iterations, it worked. So again, start solving a very simple problem, like even with the remote, right? Just do one feature at a time. The most frequent thing you would do with the TV is probably channel up and down. After you completed that, then go on to the second feature, build volume up and down. And then the last feature, oh, I want to be able to turn it off, right? So the last piece of advice that I have from you is that if you reach the last 2 or 3 hours of the hackathon and you still don't know what to do, happened to me more than twice, make a resume page for yourself, make a really simple website, walk away knowing that you've created something useful either for yourself or for another person. That's enough. So if you need help in anything at all, come join our Slack, come talk to me, I'll be there. And yeah, I'll give the stage to my co-founder, Putri. She's gonna teach you how to build a login page. This is actually a really good starting point at a hackathon. Just build a landing page, build a user sign-up flow, login flow, and then start building your features from then on. Thank you, guys.
Hi, guys. So my name is Putri, and I'm the CTO and co-founder at Cotter. I think Kevin introduced me very well earlier. So let's just get started. So, right. Can you guys see my screen? All right. So, yeah, let's get started. Today we're gonna learn how to build a login page in 15 minutes using Next.js. And also on top of that, I'm going to talk a little bit about some concepts on authentication that's going to help us in building our login flow. So this is what we're building, a very simple website. We have a login page, we have a profile page, and to view the profile page, the user would have to log in first, otherwise it's going to show an error. So for this login form, we're going to use Cotter so that we don't have to worry about making a lot of components. And don't worry when you use it in your project later on, you can easily style it to fit your project's design. All right. So this is sort of how it's going to work. So this is me, I'm the user, and I'm entering my email. And then Cotter is going to send a magic link to my email. And then once I press that link, I'm automatically logged in. And now when I go to the profile page, I can see the user data. But if I log out and then go back to the profile page, I'm going to see an error. Okay, so that's what we're going to build. Pretty simple. Right, so before we jump into the coding part, I'm going to cover some concepts on authentication to give you some context. And then I'm going to show how our example will work. Then I'm going to build, and then we're going to build our example website using Next.js. Let's start with the authentication basics. So when we say auth, it usually means two things: authentication and authorization. And it usually goes side by side. So authentication is about the part on how do you lock your users in. So on this part, you want to know that the person that's logging in is who they say they are. And usually this is achieved by asking the user to enter a combination of email and password, or using an email magic link, which is what we just saw, or by sending a one-time password to your SMS. And then the second part is authorization. And this is the part where you want to know how do you continue to allow these users to access your data after they're authenticated. So for example, after the user log in, you direct them to their profile page, and then you want to fetch 3 different API endpoints. Like the first one is their profile data, the second one is their activity, and the third one is their bio. You don't want to have to ask the user to enter their password or click a magic link 3 times. So what you can do is you can generate a token, a special token just for the user and just for some period amount of time right after they successfully log in. And then you can include that token in every API request to your backend. So for example, if we have an API here, get request to /user, we can add the token in the header of the request. So here we're using the authorization header. There are 2 types of token that is most commonly used. The first one is an opaque token, and that means that it's just a random string. So it's a random string that you cannot infer any meaning from it. Usually you will store that random string in your database, you associate it with a specific user ID and some expiry time. And the second type is called a JSON Web Token, or a JWT token. And this is basically an encoded and signed JSON object. So if you have a JSON object like the following, so you have the user ID 123 and then the name, John, you can encode this and sign this into a string. And then you can just put that string into this token part in your API request. So for our example, we're going to use email magic link. And we are also going to use the JWT token for our purpose, for our example. Right, and we'll also call the JWT token an access token. Okay, so now let's go over how our example will work. So first, the user will enter their email in your website, which will then send over the email to our backend. And then the backend will send an email to the user with a magic link. And then the user will open that link. When the user opens that link, they will open your website, which will send over the parameters to your backend, which will check if the link is valid. If the link is valid, then that means authentication is successful. And the backend will return an access token, which is the JWT token that we just talked about, to your front end. So now your front end can use that token to grab data from your backend. Your backend will check if the token is valid. And if it is, then it's going to return the data that was requested. So since we're going to use Coder, this whole part will be handled by Coder, so we don't have to worry about sending an email or making a link or checking the link or even generating this access token. Okay, so now let's build our example website. So we're going to use Next.js. And if you're not familiar with Next.js, it's basically a React frontend and Node.js backend in one project. Okay, so the first part that we're going to build is the login page that covers the flow from here to here. And then the second part that we're going to build is the backend part. So we're going to make an API endpoint at /API/user, and that will return the user data. Okay, so let's start with the login page. As you've seen earlier, it's pretty simple. We have a title, we have the login form, and then we have a navigation bar. So first things first, you might need to make a new Next.js project, which you can do by running this command, yarn create next app. Then you can follow the instructions that it's going to tell you. Then you can just run yarn dev to run it. So in Next.js, you're going to get this file structure. You'll see a folder called pages, and then you'll see a file inside pages called index.js. And that will be our home page. So that would be the file that we're going to modify to make our login form. So since we're going to use Cotter, the first thing you need to do is add Cotter as a dependency by running yarn add Cotter or npm install Cotter. And then the next part will be making the login form. So again, we're going to modify the file pages/index.js. Okay, so this is the whole content of that page. At the top of the file, we're going to import Cotter. And then at this part, inside useEffect, we're going to initialize Cotter and show the form. What this means is that we're going to show the form when the component loads. So if you see the code here, all you need to do is just make a new instance of Cotter. So new Cotter, and then you insert your API key ID, which you can get from our developer dashboard at dev.cotter.app. And then you just call cotter.signInWithLink if you want to use magic link. And then we can call .showEmailForm because we're going to use email. If you want to use phone, you can use showPhoneForm. Pretty simple. And then that would show the form actually, and the user can continue to enter their email, get the link sent to their inbox. They can open it. Once all of that is done, once the authentication is successful, it will go to this part, the then part. So inside here, you'll receive a response from Cotter, and this response will contain the user's email or the phone number and an access token that we just talked about. And we're gonna look at how the response looks like in a bit. And then if there's any error, it'll just go to the sketch part in the function here, and you can show an error or you can console log it. And then the third thing that you would need is a div with a specific ID called Cotter form container. And this is where Cotter's login form is going to show up. So since we put this div below our title, the login form is going to be below the title. All right, and then for the rest of the code, it's pretty simple. As you can see here, we have a navigation bar right here. And then we also have a title. And that's about it for our login page. All right, so let's talk about that response that you get from Cotter when the user already successfully logged in. You'll get a lot of information, and there are only several parts that is important to note for our use case. So first, there's going to be the email for the user that just logged in. And then you also get an access token. And this is the access token that we just talked about, the JWT token that we're going to need to fetch our user data to our backend API. There's also going to be a Cotter user ID, which when you're building your project and you have a database, you would want to associate Cotter user ID with your user. All right, so once that's all done, this is how our login page is going to look like. Okay, so the next part, we're going to make this profile endpoint to fetch data about the user. Okay, so we're going to the backend now. We're going to make a handler that will handle an API request to /API/user. It will require the request to have an authorization header with a valid token. And then if the token is valid, it's going to return a very simple JSON response about the user. Okay, so the first step to do this is actually to make a folder called API inside the pages folder, and then make a file called user.js inside the API folder. So in Next.js, when you have this file structure, you have /pages/API/user.js. This will automatically create an API endpoint to /API and /user. And you can automatically handle any request to /API/user inside this user.js file. Okay, and then we're also gonna need another Cotter package for the backend. So it's called Cotter node, so you can just add it as a dependency, yarn add Cotter node, or npm install Cotter node. And then we're gonna handle that API call inside pages API user.js. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do before we forget is to import Cotter at the top of the file. And then if you see here, we have one function called getUser, and this is where we're going to handle the API request. The first part that we need to do is we want to check this authorization header exists. So what we are doing here is just check if authorization exists in the headers. If it doesn't exist, we're going to return an error that the header is missing. Otherwise, we're going to split this string, so the value will be bearer space and then the token. We're going to split this string and just grab the token part, which we'll have here. And then the second part, we need to make sure that the token is valid. So Cotter already give you a very nice function here you can use to validate the token. All you need to do is call await Cotter validate JWT, pass in the token that you got right here, and then it's going to tell you whether it's valid or not. And if it's not valid, we're also going to return an error that the header is invalid. For general JWT token, when you're not using Cotter, there are also a ton of packages out there that you can use to validate any JWT token. All right, and then the last part is when everything is good, the header looks good, the token looks good, we're going to return the user data. So for this example, we're just going to hard code the user data here since we don't have a database. So we're going to return the name, ID, and a role. All right. So that part is done, and now we're going to build the profile page. So in the profile page, when the page loads, we're going to fetch our data to the API endpoint that we just created, and then show the response right here. And also, we're going to add a logout button. Okay, so the first step that we need to do is make a file under the pages folder called profile.js. And again, with Next.js, this automatically routes to /profile. And then inside profile.js, the first thing that we need to do is fetch the data from our backend. And then we're going to show the data. And lastly, we're going to add the logout button. All right, so this is how pages/profile.js is going to look like. We're going to do first, again, we're going to import Cotter at the top of the file. And then we're going to get the access token. So remember that the access token was returned inside pages/index.js when the user logs in. Now, Cotter already automatically stored that token for you so that you can easily access it by just creating a new Cotter instance with your API key and then calling await Cotter.tokenhandler.getAccessToken. And this will give you an access token object, which have, remember that the access token is an encoded JSON object. So the access token object actually have all of the attributes of that JSON object. To grab the string token that we will put into the header, you need access token dot token. All right, so that's what we're doing right here. We're putting access token dot token into our variable token. And then the last part is actually fetching the data from our backend. So we're going to use Axios here to do a GET request to /API/user. We're going to put our token into the authorization header. Then we're going to show the data. So if you see this set profile function here, we have not defined it yet. We are going to next. And basically all this does is we just pass in the return data from our API, and then we're going to use the set profile function to show that data. All right, so showing the data. First, we're going to use React's state. So this is the set profile function that we just used previously. And the set profile will set the value of our variable profile right here. We want to call our getProfile function, the function that we just made in the previous tab, inside useEffect so that when the page loads, it automatically grabs the data from our backend. And then we want to show the profile. So we just put our profile variable right here below our title user profile. And then the last part, we want to have a logout button. So first we need to make a logout function. And since we're using Cotter, what you need to log out is just make a new Cotter instance with your API key and then call await Cotter.logout. After the user logs out, we want to redirect them back to our login page. And then we just call that function from our button logout inside our navigation bar. All right, so it's done. Let's see the final result. I actually have it right here. Let me refresh this. So if you guys don't know what I'm opening, it's called Code Sandbox, and it's basically an online IDE, and you can code right here, very convenient. All right, so this is the final result. I'm going to try to log in. All right, so it's sending me an email. Let me check my inbox. So I'm not sure if you guys can see this, but I'm opening my email and just tapping that link. All right, and now I'm logged in. So if I go to the profile page, it's showing me the user data that we have. And if I log out, go back to the profile page, it's going to show an error that the header is invalid. Okay, so that was great. We just built a login page in 15 minutes, and it's a great way to sort of ship your MVP because you don't want to spend a lot of time just making the login page and not the actual product. So here are some links to get you started. Remember that you need an API key ID. You will need to make a developer account at dev.cotter.app. And you can also see our documentation and tutorials on how to customize the page and a lot more actually at docs.cotter.app. We also have a blog that have a lot of articles around authentication, OAuth, and more. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us at team@cotter.app. Okay, so we can open the floor to Q&A, I guess. Okay, so it seems like there are some questions on the chat. Let's see. What is the difference between it and the OAuth? Right, so actually we are using OAuth. So OAuth is an authorization protocol that it basically tells you how to securely sign in as a third-party app. So here, if your website is using Coder, your website will be the third-party app, and Coder will be the authorization server. So our website, Coder, our server, will authenticate your user and then give you back an access token, which you can use to authorize your API requests. Yeah, and there's a more thorough explanation in one of our blogs. I can share the link. Yeah, we'll share the link with you right after this. I'm not sure how to share it from here. All right, next. What are the advantages? Yeah, so one of the first advantage is development time. So obviously, as you see, we can build a complete login flow in just 15 minutes. Compared to if you do it yourself, it could take several weeks. And that is actually one of the reasons why we built it, because we've built so many projects and I've always built the login page. And it's such a hassle since login is pretty standard for every project, every website. We decided to just make it easy for you guys. And the second advantage is, why are we passwordless? And that's because probably most of you already know that not everyone can remember passwords. There's a lot of problems around passwords. First is a UI problem. So if you make a simple website, a shopping website, for example, but when the user wants to check out, you ask them to enter at least 8-character long password. It has to have special characters and whatnot. That actually increase friction, and that would make your users, your customers, less likely to proceed to the next step. So that's why we want to eliminate that part. And even worse, if the user already have an account and they want to log in, there's a big probability that they don't remember that password if it's unique. If it's not unique, if it's not a strong password, if they reuse their passwords, that's even worse. So it's even a big security problem. So that's why we decided to go passwordless, so that it's nice for you and your users. All right, can we use Angular? Yes, you can use Angular with the project that we have. Does it work with iOS and Android? Yes, it does. We also have iOS and Android SDKs actually. Okay, what are the advantages of using Coder instead of using OAuth from other services? I'm not sure which other service specifically that you're talking about, but one of the common things that people would do is add social logins. If you've ever logged into Medium, you can see like there's like at least 5 options there. And there's a good part and a bad part about that. It might confuse your users. I'm not sure if you have the experience, but I've had the experience. I logged in with Google and then I wanted to use my email. And instead of getting logged into my account, apparently they made me a new account. So that can be confusing. So what we're doing here is just very simple: email, phone number. We're not associated with any brand. Anyone with any email and any phone number can use it. So yeah, that's some of the difference. Yeah, I think I agree with Vishnu here. With social login, some user might not feel like connecting social accounts to your service. Take, for example, if you're making financial app, you wouldn't want the user to use Facebook. There's a thing. Oh, is it free? Yes, it's actually free right now. And I think we would probably have a special deal for Garuda Hacks participants. You should email us about that. But as of now, it is free. Will you implement two-step verification to Coder? Or are you planning to only use this type of passwordless login? So we have different methods of authentication, and you can actually combine them together to give yourself a two-step verification. So aside from logging in using email and phone number, we have this other feature called sign in with device. So it's a device-based authentication that you can use for mobile apps. So on a mobile app, how it works is that when the user registers into your app, we're going to make a cryptographic key pair. So it will have a private key and a public key and a private key. And then we're going to store the private key inside the device. And so for every time your user log in, they can automatically log in as long as it's accessed from the same device. So to make a two-step verification is pretty simple. The first step can be asking the user to use Magic Link. Then the second step would be validating that the request is coming from a trusted device. Okay, I think we are running out of time here. So yeah,
Thank you so much, Putri. Thank you for the demonstration, and I see that there were a lot of comments. Um, we're unfortunately out of time, but yeah, as Kevin and Vicky mentioned, please join our Slack channel. You can personally ask them both right there. So yeah, if you haven't already, join Slack and yeah, just be updated there.